Hey guys, just wanted to do a little bit of an update at the 3 month mark. I've now probably put 2 or 3 thousand miles in the car, but have gotten a lot of good drive time and kind of have learned a little bit about the Phoenix Android radio. This is the PX6 unit. It's the 12.1 vertical screen with the 4 gigabytes of RAM, if I do remember correctly. So just want to kind of do a couple of common questions that I always get on this, and especially at the 3 month mark. So I'll be recording on my laptop, which is why it's going to take a second. But then I can also showcase a couple of the features that normally I couldn't do on my phone. So we'll be logging in here real quick. This will also give you a little bit of a accurate depiction of how long it takes. So I just keyed on. Right now it's actually booting up right into the it's booting up automatically into the wireless CarPlay module, and now it's just finishing loading here. So last time I kind of mentioned a couple of different things about this module. It is fairly responsive. As you can see, everything moves pretty nicely with everything considered. So one thing I want to point out though, that I was able to figure out. So the brightness really, I mean, you can see a little bit that you can see it does make a little bit of a brightness adjustment. However, at night I do still find that it's pretty bright. I end up needing to use the night mode, which actually just shuts the screen off, and then just with a simple tap, it turns right back on. Beyond that, I really haven't ran into too many other issues with this unit. Here's where you can actually pull up to see everything, and I'm going to try to move that in just a bit. I know it's a little bit bright, but this is where you can kind of see everything that's going on as far as all of your different settings that you have available to you for your air inlet. I did run into an issue on here, just in full disclosure, where I had to actually go in and reconnect my old radio to turn the AC on. Once that was on, my AC worked totally fine. Didn't run into any other issues, but I do want to throw that disclaimer out there. Beyond that, so just kind of walking through everything a little bit more. I was actually working with another guy on his music. Shout out to Russ. He was running into an issue. He was running into an issue actually, where he was not able to. Basically, he had loaded everything in here, and he didn't have it properly in here as far as it loaded all of the files. And I found that you have to put it directly into one folder. You can't like do a download from Google Music or anything like that. It has to all be in one folder for that to work. And then those are just a couple other settings. Beyond that, I have noticed I've tried using the App Store a little bit more this iteration around. I have not had a lot of good success with it, if I'm being honest. So this will be just an example of TripLight. The I can't really get anything to set up as far as the ELM stuff, just mainly due to it doesn't recognize the plugin. To be quite frank, I think the plugin's kind of pointless. I'll probably be removing it here soon. But in all reality, I would say I don't utilize that anyways, so it's not a big deal for me. Things I also don't utilize on this is the Bluetooth. I don't use the Bluetooth on here almost at all. I noticed that the phone book settings, this is something that we also ran into, where it will not load your phone book. It won't load your contact info. It'll just say the phone number, which can be annoying to some people. I have used the or I should say I've used the web browser beforehand. It works pretty well for really basic things. But again, if you're using this as a radio, if you're using this as a little bit of a radio plus, where you can see right here, I've got a couple of pictures I downloaded for splash screens and things along those lines. If you're using it like this, you're not going to run into any issues with this piece. It works really, really well. I know that I was running into an issue when I first installed it where I had to reset it a couple of times. But since then, I've really not ran into any other issues, and I haven't even had to reset the module. I'm probably going on 2.5 months or so. It was only in that first couple of weeks where I was kind of testing out a couple of new things. So it's pretty interesting, pretty intuitive. Still really highly recommend. So what I've done different in this instance, since I do have the wireless CarPlay, which is the add-on module, you're able to actually set up your navigation. And I've actually just set that app right here is the Auto Kit, which is the wireless CarPlay module. You're able to do that, and then when you go down to it's either user settings, you can auto run nav, and I have that on. So basically, every time it runs, it'll immediately turn on. So I find that super, super useful. Typically, what it loads into is it'll load into my Spotify just like this. It won't be playing. I kind of don't mind that, to be honest, because then it doesn't go full volume. One thing I do want to point out, though, with the wireless module, I'm sure that this isn't an issue with the wired module at all. But if I'm going to add a little bit of volume in here, if I start playing around with this while it's doing this, so I've found whenever I'm doing maps in here, if I start getting really, heavy into touching a couple of different pieces and putting in a lot of different inputs in situations like that I run into issues where it'll get some lag, and I'm trying to get it to do that right now. Where it'll basically lag and it'll cause some issues, and basically it's just annoying. Typically speaking, what I run into is when I start scrolling through here, you can get a little bit of lag, and as you can hear right now, this is just whenever you start to kind of overload the unit while it's trying to do this. And again, this is all basic kind of stuff right here, where you can see it's just trying to communicate. It's trying to communicate with the module. That's all it really is. It's the wireless module where you're putting in a little bit, you're putting in a couple of too many demands at the same time. And being that it's audio, even though it's not a super huge file, it is transferring still a pretty good amount of information. So typically, whenever I do this, I try to give it a second before really getting upset with it, if you will. But as you see right there, it kind of gave you a good amount of lag. However, when we go back in, that was the menu button I hit right there. When I go back in there and I give it a second to load in there, everything works totally fine. And it's 100% reliable. I don't run into any issues at all. It's actually to the point where I've been really trying to pay attention, getting ready to make a secondary video for this, that I've really been trying to push the unit a little bit more to the same repeatable steps that I run into, and it works completely fine in this instance. So a couple other goodies that I've probably figured out since the last time I made a video. The bezel around here, as you can see, I usually get a question asking how good it fits. This unit fits fantastic. There is a little bit of a lip down here. As you can see, it's probably, it's half my fingernail when you're looking at that. So it's half my fingernail deep, probably half inch to maybe 3/4 of an inch. There's two 7mm bolts down here, as well as when you get this unit in the stock configuration, it won't have any clips or anything to retain it. A huge thing that I actually found out is your stock radio will have 8 white clips. It'll have 2 here and 2 here, I believe. Same on the other side. You can remove those clips with like either a flathead screwdriver or a plastic trim removal tool. And I would highly recommend putting them on this unit, because what I had found out on hard launches and things like that in this car, I would see the radio shift maybe a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch, and now it doesn't do it at all. It's very, very nice in that regard. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. But it's very, very nice in that regard, where you don't run into any issues as far as you don't run into any issues where it moves. It looks really good. It looks really factory at the end of the day. And again, if I shut this off right here, that just powered off the unit. You can actually do the moon mode, where everything continues to function. I'm turning up the audio right on my steering wheel. No issues whatsoever, and then you tap right back into it. So I would definitely say after 3 months, I'm still an absolutely massive fan of this system. Since then, I've kind of dug into the equalizer a little bit more to kind of fit my needs. I've added a 12-inch sub in the back, which is a Comp VR powered on an 1800 Boss amp with a 4-fared capacitor. It sounds really, really good when it starts to hit. Really don't run into too many issues. Um, I've also added a backup camera, and I'm going to see if I can get that to display while I'm off. And as you can see right there, that's a full backup camera. It does shut the sound off, so I am still working on that, but that does seem like a setting that you can fix. As far as that, I know I get a lot of questions asking about if it's clear, if it sounds good. It does sound good. It's a good sounding radio. Pretty comparable. I've had quite a few Kenwood, quite a few Pioneer. I really haven't ran into too many issues. It's really just limited on the system. That's 4 speakers plus the subwoofer in the back. So I was able to get this by manipulating the install settings a little bit to switch it to the Mustang, the GT500, where I basically set it into. I went through a couple of different modes where it changed this, and then I finally found this one, and then I changed it back to my Mustang install set, and it was able to save this boot logo, but then get all of my features working properly. I probably wouldn't recommend getting too involved with that without contacting Phoenix just to make sure that everything works well. Couple other oddball things that you'll run into with this unit. Again, a little bit of a lag, maybe 2 seconds in a situation right there. But again, this while you're going down the road, you're not gonna notice. Okay, it's gonna be something where you touch it and you're gonna hear it for a second, maybe two, and you're not gonna run into any issues. What I've ran into before is previously when I would have the radio auto start, um, you may run into an issue where you have the radio loaded and then you go into here and you go into your either your navigation or your car audio, whatever it may be, and you'll notice that your steering wheel controls may not be functioning for this unit. What I've had to go in to do is I've had to go in and kill the radio. As soon as I kill the radio, and usually I go through here and kill pretty much everything else just to make sure it's all running properly. Once I do that, I don't run into any issues going forward. So it's a couple. There's a couple of. There's definitely a little bit of a learning curve, I would say, for as far as just little oddball things that you run into with this unit. But overall, I drive probably 45 minutes to an hour every day. Having the CarPlay alone is such an awesome. It's such an awesome built-in. I mean, you're talking. This is probably, I don't know, 7, 8 inches square right here, where you see quite a bit of info and you can manipulate it and do all those things. And just driving down the road, I mean, maybe this is more of a CarPlay thing rather than anything else. But just driving down the road, you can see over to this. You can flip over really, really quickly over into your 3 displays, and it's just awesome. And then phone works super great. You end up seeing a whole bunch of different things here. I have experienced a little bit of a lag as far as when I'm making a call via CarPlay. It's something that I haven't really explored to see if it's an issue with my car or if it's an issue with the unit itself. It could be just a delay in the mic itself. But like I said, I haven't had a lot of time to go into that. I've noticed a pretty good amount of usability just flipping back and forth through here. I really don't get too many questions on that. Settings, I always put mine to always dark. So if not, you can set it to light. Doesn't really make a difference in my opinion, but that's kind of your own bag, if you will. So this is kind of my 3 month check-in. Really don't run into any other issues. I think I downloaded this one and enabled it. Doesn't really do anything on mine. So the only thing it does is, as you saw right there, it'll flip it back to my home screen because that's what it's set up to do. Where if you had this installed on another vehicle, it may be doing something else. But Beyond that, always willing to field any questions that you guys may have, any tips and tricks. I know, again, shout out to Russ. He had contacted me and showed me that you can actually do a separate pin in your kick panel if you want this to go on with your key being in the accessory position rather than the on position, which he said he spends a lot of time in. That would as well, it wouldn't shut off as soon as you back your key out like this. It shuts down the unit. It would continue to stay on until you opened up the door of the car. So I usually find it loads within 10 seconds, if that. Definitely definitely don't notice how long it loads. I'm very very happy with the unit for everything that it is. It's pretty fantastic. I was able to find that I want to say it was an 11-inch MacBook touch screen or 11-inch MacBook screen protector is what I have loaded on, which I have on here, so that when I shift, and that's why you may see some discoloration. Right here is this is a screen protector. This is the screen. It covers up probably 70% or so of it, and I really don't run into any issues with that. I like it since I've got a manual. I want to make sure that I'm not touching the screen with my fist, or if I am, I'm trying to avoid any blemishes or anything like that on the screen itself. So, if anyone has any questions, feel free to leave a comment or anything along those lines. I've been trying to check them every couple of days. The first video kind of blew up. It had just under 2,000 views in, I want to say, 6 weeks. So, something that I'm really not accustomed to. So, I'll definitely check it more and try to make sure that everything kind of works. If I were to give a definitive rating on the radio as a whole, I would definitely say first install, first impression, probably a 7 out of 10. After using it for 3 months, I'd probably bump that up to an 8.5. As a good reference point, I don't have a 10. A 10 would be a fully factory system that works perfect and has every functionality piece that you could want. But when comparing this to my wife's 2017 Escape with built-in CarPlay, with built-in nav, she prefers this unit actually more because it's larger. It shows you everything that you would need to know, and it all makes sense. You're not going into stupid menus. Whenever you want to go down here, just swipe up. That's all it is. It's all responsive. For the most part, I mean these numbers, they're close. I don't think that it has any way to tell you. Mine just had the knobs. I don't think it has any way to tell you what would actually be the temperature of what it runs inside. So you may have to bump it up a couple of degrees warmer than what you would expect. However, it works super super well. And again, right like there, you can actually adjust the settings directly right there, right on this piece, or shut it off, which is something that I typically will do. It will go down after a couple seconds. If not, you can hit the back button and it'll go down right away. So, if you guys have any other questions, like I said, feel free to reach out. I'll try to help out any way I can, or if I can look something up for you, or if I can try to emulate something for you, I will. Again, another couple of questions I always get. The car audio right here is the wired CarPlay module. That one was an add-on that I added specifically, so that's why I don't really use this one. This is kind of like a backup system for some reason if I don't want to use the wireless. Maybe if I'm on a long road trip or something along those lines that I don't want to do the wireless. I want to do the wired so it doesn't have any lag or anything like that. I can. I did mention before that they do like to fight if you've got the wireless and the wired hooked up at the same time. So what I ended up doing is right in the kick panel on the passenger side, I just snaked my adapter right there. So worst case, I can quickly unplug it, and then I ran all my wires underneath my center console, basically to where the factory sync 3.5 millimeter and USB were, and I just ran two USBs directly out of there, so I can actually run it all the way from the back of the radio all the way up the center console and back without any wires being shown unless I want them to be shown. So that's pretty much it. Install questions I've gotten on that too. Mine was pretty much all plug and play. I don't recall anything being crazy. You'll need a 7 millimeter. Your center console will pick right up. I don't know the steps for an automatic. The manual. You have to take the shift knob off, and then just make sure that you pop out your your trunk, hazard, and traction control. Just make sure you unplug it and you're gentle with the connector so that it all comes off nice and easy. Um, it'll. I've had this part probably half a dozen times between now and then for other reasons, and I've never ran into any issues with this. I've taken the radio out 2 or 3 times, never had any issues with that. It's a really nice unit. I'd really recommend it. I know they're running killer deals. I think I picked this thing up for just over $600 in February. Now we're going on just before July. Really haven't ran into any issues. Their tech support kind of sucks, so it's kind of a if you have questions, reach out to someone that has one, and they probably will be able to give you an answer or just try and give you a better explanation of what to do. So that's pretty much all I have. So thanks for watching, and have a good night.